much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and to give you a little bit of an update. I want to talk to you today about a couple things. One being the Innovation Campus. Make sure I've got this working the right way. Okay, but I also want to talk to you a little bit about economic development models that we're trying to apply here and how these models are quite a bit different than the models that Wichita historically has used. And I want to start off by saying that a lot of good people have tried to do a lot of good things here in Wichita, but what we know is that the models just don't work anymore. Kansas, in terms of expansion of technology-based enterprises, the latest data I saw from Milken Institute is that we're 50th out of 50 states. So we aren't doing a particularly good job. Wichita is not growing. We are one of 2 cities in the nation to lose technology-based jobs since 2013, the only one in the Midwest to do so. And so it is time for us to think differently about what we do and how we do it. And so a lot of what I'm trying to do here at Wichita State is to say, look, we can be a hub of development for this entire region, and we need to think differently about how you develop a region and what's possible. So a lot of what I want to talk to you about today are kind of the underlying themes of what it would mean to have a modern economic development policy in this region. And when I talk about region, I'm talking about all 10 counties that are part of the Bragg study, because South Central Kansas really has to grow together. We have to recognize that we are all one big region, and that the political limits don't really define the economic limits of the area. The economy is quite different than the politics. Our political areas were set up more than 100 years ago, and so when you look at counties, and Sedgwick County is named after General John Sedgwick, who was a well-respected and well-loved Civil War general. So just to give you a sense of the timing of a lot of this sort of stuff. So, economic development. There are 3 conditions, and there's a lot of people out there that use anything they want to do, they try to lump under economic development because it makes people feel better. Why are you putting in that trout stream? Oh, economic development. Why are people, oh, economic development. So when I talk about economic development, there really are 3 goals that we have. And these 3, anything you're doing that addresses these 3 goals can be economic development, but if they're not addressing these 3 goals, then they're probably not. If Pete and I get rich on something, that probably isn't economic development. We just got lucky and got rich. So when we talk about economic development, there are 3 things we're trying to accomplish. One is we're trying to create net new jobs in whatever area we're looking at. So if it's a whole 10-county region, we're trying to create net new jobs in the 10-county region. But to simply say that we've moved jobs from this place to that place isn't economic development. That's just moving jobs around. Or to say that, oh, wait a minute, we preserve jobs, that's a good base, but now what are we doing to expand those jobs? And so that's a lot of where we're trying to focus, is how do we create net new jobs? Secondly, how do we create private sector wealth? How do we grow the wealth of the region? How do we grow the income of the region? How do we grow the money that's available to people in this region? So that's the second goal of economic development. And the third goal is how do we make the industries in our region more globally competitive? So those are the 3 things we're trying to do. So when you hear that people are, oh, we're doing this for economic development, yeah, maybe. Are you trying to accomplish one of those 3 things? If you are, then it probably is economic development. If you're not, it's probably not. You're just using the language. And so, there is a real difference. Okay, so what we're trying to do with the models of economic development that we're using is we're trying to link public policy and markets. What we know, I'm trained in urban and regional economics, and what we know about land use patterns is that 90+% of all land use in the United States is based on the economy. That people locate businesses, they locate houses based on economic decisions. There are a few other decisions like keeping a park, putting up a memorial, preserving a battlefield that are not economic. But almost all decisions about land use are at the end of the day economic, even if you try to zone, even if you try to have land use controls, at the end of the day, the economy wins. And so what we're trying to do is at a large scale is to align public policy and the market so that we can try to help grow jobs, grow wealth, and grow competitiveness. But we know that the market is the core driver, so let's try to align our policies and our activities. Second, what we're trying to do is to look at the clusters of businesses that already naturally are locating here. We know that there are certain clusters that have chosen to be in Wichita, have chosen to be in Hutchinson. They've chosen to be in this area. So we know they think it's competitive. So what we'd like to do as part of this model is say, fine, they've already made the judgment. Now, let's go talk to them about what can make them more competitive. Let's talk to them about how we can help them expand their employment, how they can be better at what they do. And then let's create our policy around those things that encourage the development of those clusters. Generally, clusters naturally form. You don't tell them. The buffalo hunt is a terrible economic development model. We're going to go get IBM and we're going to get them to move a regional headquarters here. Well, there's nothing to support them, so why bother? At the end of the day, you're going to spend a lot of money. You aren't going to get what you hope. You're better off spending the money on helping develop the clusters that you have and helping develop the capacities of the area that's naturally occurring. So we also know that the technology clusters are the most important in terms of driving new wealth. If you look at the data, for every new technology job you create in an area, you generally create 5 to 6 other jobs. About half of those other jobs you're creating are unskilled. And so if you can really focus on building your technology sectors, you create a raft of other jobs for other people. If you focus on creating those other jobs, you never get the technology jobs, you never get the payback. And so we as a university are focusing a lot of time, effort, and attention on how do we develop the capacities to push those technology jobs forward, because the spillover is 5 or 6 to 1 in terms of new jobs you create in the area. So that's a really important thing. If you look at Apple Computer, they employ about 12,000 people in Cupertino, and they are responsible for an additional 60,000 jobs in that area, of which 35,000 are unskilled or semi-skilled. So it has a huge impact. So when we talk about building a technology sector, people think that's a little effete. Oh, you just want to go get those college graduates. No, it affects everybody, and the effect is quite large. So that's really why we're focusing there. It's the point of the spear, if you want to think of it that way. So we're focusing on the 8 clusters that have been identified by Bragg. These are 7 of the 8. We left out healthcare because it's an emerging cluster, and we think there's a lot to do there. We think there's a lot of opportunity. But so what kind of a metro area is Wichita? When you think about the Wichita economy, what do you think about? Aviation, yeah. We think of ourselves as an aviation hub. We're actually not. Shocking? We're actually an engineering hub. And by us focusing only on aviation, we're hurting ourselves badly. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't focus on aviation. Of course we should. Aviation is of great value. It's our biggest single export. But the reality is that we are one of the top 5 engineering hubs in the country right now. We used to be in the top 3, but we're losing ground because we're not paying attention. So think about that. In terms of density of engineers in the workforce, we're one of the top places in the United States, and they cut across many of these areas. So if it will help us all if we can all start talking about Wichita as an engineering hub rather than just an aviation hub. Of course, aviation is our most important export. Of course it is. But we do engineering across a lot of areas. So what's our second biggest export?
College graduates.
Yeah, educated talent, exactly. We export a net of about $150 million a year of educated talent. No metropolitan area can sustain that over time. Think about that. $1.5 billion every decade leaves this general metro area because people don't think they have a future here. We've got to turn that around. If we don't turn it around, the future is not going to look very good. As I said, we are one of 2 metropolitan areas in the United States out of the top 100 that lost technology-based jobs since 2013. That's not a good position to be in. That's not where you want to go. So, what are the 3 key drivers of all of this at the end of the day in terms of the new economy? Really pretty simple. R&D. We have an amazing ability in this state to ignore R&D, and yet it's absolutely huge as an issue. It's absolutely a crucial driver. And I'm not talking only about university R&D. We're actually relatively minor players comparatively. R&D by business is a huge asset in terms of the competitiveness of a region. Kansas is ranked, the last numbers I saw, 27th in industrial R&D. But how many of us are using that? What policies do we have as a region? What policies do we have as a city or a county? What policies do we have as a state to encourage industrial R&D? Now, we as a university are moving to try to support that, and we're moving rapidly. We have a history going back into the 1940s of supporting industrial R&D. And we've now made it even more a core part of who we are. But the state doesn't really have a policy promoting R&D. One of the best predictors of whether your economy is going to be competitive or not is the SBIR grant. How many of you know about SBIRs? Small Business Innovation Research Grants. They're federal grants. You can get up to $1 million over 2 tranches. You have to go to the private sector after that. But the percent of your state GDP that is made up of SBIR grants is a pretty good predictor of the competitiveness of your economy. And SBIRs, the sheer number of them, is one of the better predictors, and we are way down as a state in SBIRs. By the way, in terms of grants, we look like Vermont. There's just no excuse for that. There's only 600,000 people in Vermont, for goodness sakes. We can do better than that. We got more people than that. So anyway, so R&D, big deal. It's kind of like the funny uncle you keep in the closet. You don't really want to talk about it. I don't really understand why, honestly, because it is one of the 3 key drivers of the future of the economy. Second, workforce. We love to talk about taxes in Kansas, and that's a good thing. But businesses can stand marginally higher taxes more than they can stand a marginal workforce. They gotta have a workforce that works, that's capable, that has the skill set. They'll deal with the taxes. They hate them, but they'll deal with them. But they can't deal without a good workforce. And so we've got to spend the time and attention on workforce development. It is why we want WATC to merge with us, because we want to be able to offer everything from the GED all the way through to the master's or doctorate if that's what people need to get their workforce moving. And we want to be responsive to business all across the frame, because we feel like that's something we can do. But workforce development, number 2, got to have the workforce. It's not the only thing. Everybody talks about, workforce, but that is one of 3. The third is quality of life. And this one is so hard for people because it sounds fluffy. It sounds fluffy. What do you mean you're going to invest in the symphony? I don't go to the symphony. Why are you investing in the symphony? Right? The fact is, quality of life actually matters a lot. At the end of the day, think about it. The people that you want to drive your economy are exactly the same people Singapore wants, exactly the same people New York City wants, exactly the same people Dallas wants. And so they're going to locate, they're going to stay or not stay, depending on how they perceive the quality of their experience, their opportunities, and the opportunities for their families. So I'm off traveling to Singapore, trying to make a deal for a company here in Wichita. What's happening to my spouse and kids, right? Education matters, healthcare matters, activities matter, quality of life matters a whole lot. And so those are the 3 core drivers of the new economy. 3 core drivers: R&D, workforce. Now, obviously, you've got to be able to get to market. You've got to have the transportation systems. You've got to have the connectivity. You have to have all of that base. But if you have that base and you don't have these things, it won't matter. You'll just be at crossroads. Okay, so what are we trying to do? Well, the Innovation Campus, you all are aware of. I'll show you some of the updates on it. We're restructuring our curriculum. We're doing some really interesting curriculum development. Some stuff I really never thought I'd see faculty say, yeah, we can do that. We can make that happen. It's really been fun to watch, and I'm real excited about it. We are looking at workforce. We're trying to shift the way we do our research, and we are trying to tie our recruitment of students to where we export. Very different model. In fact, the publisher of The Atlantic stopped to see me about a month ago. He said, I've never heard of another university doing this. We looked at where does Greater Wichita send its product? If we export out of this region, where do we send our stuff? And I can't do a lot with China, and I can't do a lot with Europe, but we send it to Dallas, to Oklahoma City, to Kansas City. And so we went to the regions and asked for permission to treat those metropolitan areas as in-state for the purpose of tuition. Now, why? Because people in management positions are more likely to send their kids away to school. And so we're creating a relationship with that family that can help us drive our economic interests in the region. We're growing enrollment, but we're not asking to go to Hoboken. We don't ship very much to Hoboken. We ship a whole lot to Dallas. We ship a whole lot to Kansas City. So those are the places we're asking to have that connection, and we've been given the right to have it to Dallas. We're still working on the Kansas City thing. KU's not quite sure they like us having that, so we're still working that one through. But that's why we chose those spaces. It isn't because we thought it was, hey, that's cool, let's go get them. It's because we looked at the shipping and said, if we're shipping stuff out of here, where's it going? And it's going to those places up and down the I-35 corridor. So what's happening is you're seeing emergence of an economic market in the center of the country that they expect by 2050 will look something like this. It runs basically from San Antonio, Texas to Kansas City area, and we are right in the middle of it. Now, how many of you spent a long time going, how do I get my city, how do I get my county connected to the I-35 corridor? Am I sure that my policies are really doing that so that we can take maximum advantage of our location? Not much of that going on very publicly. And that is a really core problem for us. How do we take advantage of our location right about in the middle of that geographic area to be able to increase jobs, wealth, and competitiveness? By the way, the U.S. Department of Transportation high-speed rail latest plan leaves us out because they don't think we're important enough anymore. We got to change that. We got to fix that to where we are perceived as a hub that you can't miss. So we've created a new faculty reward system. It is now possible with our faculty reward system to hire faculty members whose job is to get patents and to create relationships, R&D relationships with business. That wasn't true until this year. That's a very important change for us. We are breaking up curricula into skill sets that you can pick up in a weekend or a couple weekends, and we're giving you partial credit. We're calling them badges. And you can then build toward a certificate. And I'm hoping over time we can build certificates into badge-based degrees. So you pick up small pieces, small chunks as you go to more account for the way people really work today. We've also been given the right to have market-based tuition. So that right now we're working with USD 259 on a contract where we can reduce the tuition for teachers to make sure they get the advanced education they need rather than taking silly courses that don't matter. We're having them actually offering them courses that really improve their teaching and improve their opportunities to teach. John has a relationship with an operation outside of here, John Tomlin does, that if they choose to go, we will charge more than our out-of-state tuition, because we are the only provider in the world of this particular service. And so if you want the service, you're going to pay market for it. And that will be higher than out-of-state tuition because we can, because it's the market. Sounds a little private sector, doesn't it? Okay, what can I tell you? And athletics and the arts are part of it. People say, why did you raise the question of football? Because it's part of how you create the sense of quality of life in a place. I still don't know how we're going to fund it all, but I am going to have the conversation so that we can at least understand what's feasible because it does have impact on the perceived quality of life in the area. That's why I'm talking about it. Okay, so where are we with the Innovation Campus? What I would tell you on your way out of town, on your way out of here, just drive out 17th Street, turn to the left, go down to 21st Street. You can't turn left, can you, John? So anyway, go on down, turn around, go on down 21st Street, because you'll see where we are. It's pretty, every place that has a star in it, we have a construction project, either in planning or underway. Starting at the bottom, the engineering building, experiential engineering, will be finished this fall, we think in November. And it will be outfitted, and over the course of spring semester, parts will be open and we'll be moving forward. It also includes the Go Create Maker space, which is a community space. And the Kochs have assisted us in allowing low-income folks to be able to come. They're underwriting the cost for low-income folks to be there. We think that's really important because we need to get everybody engaged. And by the way, you don't have to live near the university. If you want to come in from Hayesville, we're happy to have you. If you want to come in from Derby, we're happy to have you. It's open to everybody. So that's at the bottom. The blue building with a star over it is Airbus. If you look to your left, the star is a parking garage that we built next to this building with 450 bays in it. It's in design now. Should go out for bid in November, which means when it's built, there'll be another 450 places the students will be able to complain about. But the basic rule in my business, by the way, if they're complaining about food and parking, you won. Because no university are they ever happy with either of those two things. So the fact that they're complaining about parking, I think, is a good thing. Anyway, if you look, the mall is under construction now. Will be finished this fall. The Innovation Boulevard area is mainly finished, not entirely, but that one is the big road that runs from 17th Street up to the baseball stadium. The Joint Law Enforcement Training Center is in design. We're excited about that. We have a private coffee house on the top that will be open in January, they tell us, and it has an 11-car line for coffee. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm number 2 in line, I get out of my car and go in. But apparently it is considered de rigueur to do that, so you have to sit there while other people get their lattes and their double espressos and all of that. So anyway, it will be the largest of that brand of coffee house in Kansas when it is built. It's about 2,000 square feet. The star on your right is 19th Street. We struggled with a name, and since it was between 17th Street and 21st Street, we thought 19th sounded pretty good. Actually, we didn't. The city told us what to name it. But anyway, that's 19th Street. If any of you wish to donate, it can become Meitzner Drive. We can do all kinds of fun things with that. So anyway, that is where we are in terms of construction right now. Oh, we do have a new private apartment building going in. And this is an interesting one because the university is making no investment in it. We control the behaviors of the people in the building through restrictive covenants. So they have to abide by our Code of Student Conduct. So any of you want to move in, you're welcome to, but you'd have to abide by the Code of Student Conduct. It's students first, but the relationship will be between the student and the developer, not with the university. So what we're trying to do really is an application of market-based management. When I taught here, I didn't know that language. Charles Koch hadn't written his first book yet, but that's what it really is. Know your market, know who you are, focus on those things, and keep moving down a direction based on hiring quality people. Focus on your core values, focus on who you are, and focus on what your market is. And so what we're attempting to do is to build wealth in the region, increase business competitiveness, and increase the number of jobs, net new jobs in the region. That's what we're trying to do with this whole model. Okay, so key issues. Increasingly, we're trying to support supply chain. We are looking and actually are moving on a new degree in supply chain management, which is something the community's been asking for. We are focusing on technology-based enterprises because it's where you get the biggest bang for the buck. And we're recognizing that location within the metropolitan area, wherever business wants to locate, we should help them locate where they want to be to maximize the potential they have for job growth and competitiveness. So we don't care where you locate. We want to know, how do we help you become more competitive? How do we help you add jobs? how do we help you gain wealth in this region. I will stop there if we have a minute for questions, otherwise I will get out of your hair. So.
Well, thank you, Doctor. Any questions so far? I might, one thing that, when you talk about the R&D, that's SBIR grant?
Small Business Innovation Research Grants, right.
So how would we refer some of our research companies?
Right now, that's one of the really big problems that we have is no one in the community is actually picking up on it. We can help you a little bit with the SBDC here, but one of the things I'm trying to find is resources to really help with the SBIR grants, because a lot of new developers, a lot of people who have new ideas don't know how to write a grant proposal. Right. I know in the state of Kansas, I sat on the committee that oversaw this or state of North Carolina, I sat on the committee that oversaw this for the state. And it is something that I'm encouraging the governor and the legislature to really push on, because we are way behind the 8 ball on this and need to move it.
So as of now, a company would have to go through the Small Business Administration?
Yeah, they'd have to go through the Small Business Development Center and then try to write it themselves. It's pretty tough.
Okay. Other questions, comments? This is very helpful for us to know. Good. Congratulations on the Innovation Campus.
Very good. Yeah, we're excited. It's moving forward. And I thought I was starting a 30-year project. I'm not convinced I didn't start a 7-year project, quite honestly. It's moving way faster. If you look out there, it looks like a moonscape. We got dirt moving everywhere. And every time it rains, it's total morass. But again, thank you all very much. Thanks for coming out here and holding your meeting on our campus. And despite what is likely to be rain, it is a great day to be a shocker.